In a Civil War infirmary in Vermont, a soldier named Frederick Whipple lay on a cot and repeated to anyone who would listen that he wanted to go home. He kept repeating it until he stopped breathing. The army doctor wrote down the cause of death, and the cause of death was not a wound or a fever or a surgeon with a rusty saw. It was nostalgia. Not a mood, a diagnosis with a fatal prognosis and a column in the casualty ledger. For about 200 years, a doctor could write that word on a man's chart, and it meant he might be dead by spring. The strange part isn't that they got it wrong, it's how confidently they got it wrong, who invented it, and how slowly the warm ache for home stopped being a thing that could kill you and became a thing that sells you a phone. The Union Army did not file nostalgia under morale, it filed it under disease, in the same official medical history as dysentery and gangrene, with its own line in the count. The Surgeon General's record puts it at 5,547 cases and 74 deaths. 74 men on paper of missing home. There is a federal ledger prepared under the direction of the Surgeon General of the United States Army, in which wanted to go home sits in the same casualty table as shot, tallied with the same pen, and nobody filing it appears to have flinched. A man could be discharged from the deadliest war in American history on the grounds that he was too sad about Ohio, and that classification did something the soldiers noticed, because nostalgia was a disease. It ran through medical channels, which meant a sufficiently homesick man could be processed out, sent away from the cannons on the strength of it. The Army had, without meaning to, recognized a disease whose only cure was to stop being in the Army, and then kept prescribing leeches rather than admit it. It was a man dying of a noun, and the noun had paperwork. The disease was less than 2 centuries old at that point because someone had simply made it up. In 1688, a medical student in Basel needed a thesis topic, and he picked the thing he saw all around him: Swiss mercenaries, hired out to fight other people's wars on flat foreign ground, wasting away from wanting the mountains back. He needed a properly clinical name, so he did what every panicking student does and reached for Greek. Nostos, the journey home. Algos, pain. He bolted the two words together, called it a brain illness, and handed it in. He was 19. A teenager invented one of the most powerful words for human longing because homesickness didn't sound like enough of a disease to get a grade. And he didn't stop at the name. He explained exactly how it killed you in confident detail. The cause of nostalgia, he wrote, was the continuous vibration of animal spirits through the fibers of the middle brain, the precise fibers where the impressed traces of the idea of the fatherland still clung. Translated out of the 17th century, missing home carved a literal groove in your brain, and the longing was the sound of fluid rattling down that groove over and over until the rattling stopped your heart. A 19-year-old looked at heartbreak and diagnosed a clogged pipe. The pipe is the part that mattered. Because he sounded sure, and because he had Greek, generations of doctors took the diagram seriously and went hunting for the broken fiber. A homesick person isn't a finding. A vibrating brain pipe is. It got its own labeled diagram in the textbooks, while the man it was supposedly happening inside got a cut. So the pipe stayed in the literature, and the person stayed sad for 10 generations. The disease was thought to have a trigger you could weaponize. The Swiss had a folk tune called the Ranz des Vaches, the song herdsmen sang to call the cattle down the mountain at milking time. Plain, repetitive, a little mournful, and the belief was that if a Swiss mercenary heard it far from home, it would set off the homesickness so violently that he would desert, collapse, or die. So according to Rousseau, writing it down in 1767, the response was simple. it was forbidden, on pain of death, to play the Ranz des Vaches anywhere near Swiss troops in foreign service. An army actually signed that order, an army so frightened of a tune for moving cows that it made humming the tune a capital offense. The threat is a melody, the countermeasure is a firing squad, and the firing squad also sends the soldier home, in a manner of speaking. The death penalty for the cattle song is the one treatment in this whole story that the disease and the doctor agree on, because both of them just want the man gone. And by the legend's own logic, the song didn't need the firing squad to do the killing. Hearing it was supposed to be enough. A few bars of the milking tune, and a soldier far from the mountains would stop eating, waste, and die where he stood. So the army was, on paper, executing men to protect them from a melody that the army itself believed could kill them first. The two methods raced. Once you've decided longing is a disease of the brain, you have to treat the brain. So they did, with everything they had. The prescriptions on record for nostalgia include purging, leeches, opium, and warm hypnotic emulsions, which is a phrase doing an enormous amount of lying. Strip the Latin off it, and you are looking at warm soup administered with a straight face. The one treatment that actually worked sat in plain sight the entire time, and the patient knew it. You sent the man home. That was it. That was the cure for the deadliest version of the disease, and the homesick soldier had been naming it out loud by the only word that ever applied, the whole time he was being leeched. The doctors heard a symptom. The cure was the symptom. A man kept saying, "I want to go home," and 200 years of medicine treated the sentence as the disease instead of the prescription and reached for the opium. So the field ran what amounts to a 200-year clinical trial. Bloodletting, mercury, soup, and the threat of the bayonet, all of it pitted against simply doing the thing the patient asked for on day one. The bayonets lost. Then nostalgia did something no other disease has done. It got better by being demoted. Over the 19th and 20th centuries, it slid down the diagnostic ladder one rung at a time, and each rung is a different profession deciding it was their problem. The neurologists lost the brain groove and handed it to the psychiatrists, who reclassified it as melancholia. The psychoanalysts took it from them and rebranded it as a regression, and then, looking at actual homesick immigrants grieving an actual lost country, decided the real disorder was that these people refused to get over it, a pathological failure to detach. That is the psychoanalytic move in full. A man misses the only home he has, so you diagnose him with missing it too sincerely. The world that nostalgia described had stopped existing when home was a fixed mountain village you were dragged away from by force. Longing for a place made sense as the whole illness. Then industrialization and mass migration uprooted everyone. Home became a thing you left on purpose, repeatedly, that you could not point to on a map. So the longing had nowhere fixed to attach. It detached from the village and reattached to the calendar. It stopped meaning, "I miss there," and started meaning, "I miss then." Nobody held a press conference. There was no mourning. The World Health Organization struck nostalgia from the books and reclassified it as a feeling. The same 6 letters rode the whole way from a killer of mercenaries through a neurosis of immigrants to the engine that sells a 40-year-old a deluxe reissue of the toy he had when he was 8. And reissues aimed at that exact childhood window outperform new products reliably enough that the strategy has a name and a budget line. The word kept its old packaging the whole way down, same 6 letters, same wistful sound, while the contents were swapped out for the precise opposite, the way a brand outlives every single ingredient it was named for. The body cannot reliably tell the difference between the remembered warmth of a place and actual heat. Take a room full of people and make them hold one hand in ice water for as long as they can stand it. The ones told to sit and miss something first, to dwell on an old memory before the plunge, keep the hand in the freezing water about a third longer than everyone else. 26 seconds against under 20. The longing was running as a furnace, the body borrowing real warmth from a moment that was already over and spending it against actual ice. The same reverie a teenager tried to treat with leeches turns out to be load bearing equipment, the body's own heating system, accidentally lethal in the field, measurably useful in a lab. So the longing that once carried a fatal prognosis is now filed in the same literature under the things that are good for you. The clogged pipe was a working radiator the whole time, and the cattle song that got men shot is, by the current science, basically a prescription, which means that a tune you could once be executed for humming near the troops is now, with the meaning swapped out underneath it, the kind of thing a doctor might recommend you listen to on purpose. The feeling never changed. It is exactly what it was for the mercenary on the flat foreign field, and for Whipple on his cot, the warm ache for a place and a time you can't get back to. What changed, century by century, was the person standing over it with a chart, deciding whether it was killing you or saving you. Nostalgia didn't get cured. It got reassigned. The only thing that ever really moved was what the person holding the clipboard wrote down next to it.